I got paid $25 and baked ziti.
This is Wedding DJ School. I'm Josh Mitchell, your guide to the business of a wedding DJ. We're talking with leaders in the wedding entertainment industry. You're going to learn their backstories, how they got started, and where they are today. Mike Wieder is the author of Be the Difference Maker, a blueprint for transforming DJs into entertainers. Mike's company is called Ultimate Sounds Entertainment. They serve New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. Mike has been in the industry for 35 years. He delivers seminars and is highly regarded as an expert for all kinds of events. What I love about Mike is his commitment to delight and go the extra mile. I first read his book right when it came out, and I found myself highlighting sections where Mike would find ways to surprise his clients. For instance, he heard a couple mention Buffalo Wild Wings, the restaurant, and on their wedding day, picked up an order, asked the catering staff to keep it warm in the back, and then right before dinner, he served it to them. And it's moments like this that create raving fans and have people talking about your work and recommending you to all their friends. You're going to learn a lot today from Mike. As always, you're going to hear his backstory, how he got into the game, and how that can be an encouragement to you wherever you are in your journey.
Mike Wieder from Ultimate Sounds Entertainment in Central New Jersey, and we specialize in weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, corporate events, you name it, we do it. And we have a special division where we do bubble parties for young children.
Tell me a little bit about how you got into the industry. What was that like in the early 80s, right before you became a DJ? What was that path, and how did that look like when you became a professional?
Wow. Well, when I graduated high school in '82, as a gift, my family gave me a stereo system. And I wanted to meet girls like every teenager does. So back in the day, you made mixtapes. So I didn't have all the gear. So my sister bought me a turntable. So now I had two turntables and had no idea what a mixer was. So did a little research, found out what a mixer was, bought a mixer. And I had no internet, no training. I had no idea what a DJ did. All I wanted to do was meet girls. And I moved from Brooklyn, New York to upstate New York. And my neighbor asked me if I knew a DJ, and I opened my mouth and said I could do it. And that was my introduction into DJing.
Do you remember how much you got paid for that first event, if anything?
Oh, absolutely. I got paid $25 and baked ziti. And it cost me probably close to $300 because I bought Radio Shack, quote unquote, professional speakers, and stopped at the record store and spent a fortune on K-Tel Records, which had the compilations with all the top hits.
What was that experience like when you realized you could get paid to do this thing that you kind of saw as fun and kind of advantageous to yourself?
Well, I think what it was people responded to my personality. I wasn't shy on the microphone. I was engaging, and because of that and the experience I was able to provide them with, my phone started ringing, and I was like, wow, I can get paid for this. And I'll never forget, my biggest paying wedding back in the day was for $250. And I told my mother, I was so excited. I booked a wedding for $250, and she said, it's a lot of money. You should really think about that. And now I charge a lot more. I don't know if I'm that much better, but I was able to raise the prices.
That's awesome. So when those early days when you first decided to make, to charge for your work and, to go with that $250 and everything, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe starting off right now, who's feeling like, who's maybe in that similar spot of getting a gig and not really sure if the amount of money that they're getting paid, like they almost feel guilty for the amount of money? How would you talk somebody through that if they were experiencing that, or if they're about to experience something like that?
Well, you have to assign a value to your time and your experience, and you get experience by putting in the time. So don't be afraid to charge what you feel is a fair rate. And if it's only $250, which I'd advise against, But if it gets you the experience, because of that, you'll be able to take the next step forward and charge 500 or 1,000, and eventually you'll find your market. And hopefully it's a very high paying market, and you'll be able to back up all those years and provide the content and the performance that clients deserve.
What mistake do you think beginners make in their early days as it relates to charging for their services?
The biggest mistake, either undervaluing or overvaluing themselves. If you go in and say, I want to do a wedding and I'm going to charge as little as I can get away with because I want the work, you have to know that I'm setting a base level for myself. And I have to be willing to grow from that. If you come in with no experience and charge $1,000, you're going to be out of business in, a gig, because people are going to say that guy was horrible. But if you come in at a reasonable rate, let's say $500, depending on your market and what you're bringing, but as a first-time entertainer, I would say go do it for $500 if you have to, and prove that you're worth more. Under value and over deliver. But the best thing you can do to get to that point is maybe shadow an experienced entertainer such as yourself or another reputable company and learn from them. The internet's a wonderful thing, but real life experience is always better.
So take me back to your early days of being being specifically at weddings and making weddings fantastic, or maybe I don't know what they were like for you in those early days. I don't know if you would use that terminology for the very early days, but for somebody who is listening in right now, who is just getting started, they're just in those early days, what were some of the lessons that you learned in that first year, two to 3 years of doing weddings? What kind of lessons were very real to you at the beginning of that experience?
One, that I don't know everything. Two, that maitre d's are not the know-all be-all. And if you'd like me to relate a great horrible story, I'd be more than happy and embarrassed too. So I was under the impression that maitre d's and banquet managers knew everything, and I was only the DJ. And this is before I transitioned into what I consider myself now as an entertainer. But I always have a list. So I had my format sheet, and one of the notes on there said bride's father deceased in big red letters. And in the middle of the wedding, the maitre d', and this is maybe my third wedding, the maitre d' ran over to me and said, do the father-daughter dance now. And thinking that I must have made a mistake and I didn't look at my paper, I just automatically threw on the song that I was playing for the father-daughter dance every time, a song called Daddy's Little Girl. And I said, for each day until today and each day hereafter, Jennifer, you always have been and always will be Daddy's little girl. And a gentleman in front of me turned around and went, he's dead. And that was pretty much the last time I saw the bride for the rest of the wedding.
Wow.
Unfortunately, mistakes happen, but if you make a mistake, learn from your mistake. I refused pay for that wedding, with the exception of that minor mistake. The wedding was great. People still, they understood, and I recovered. But if you make a mistake, learn from it and don't make it again.
I love it. You have to learn from those mistakes. In other words, you have to take time to process after the event happens, and whether it's a big situation like that when everybody's aware of a glaring issue, or whether it's something that's small, you have to take the time afterward and say, how can I grow from this? How can I take what happened tonight and turn it into something that's going to help me to grow and improve for the next wedding? So that's really good. I do want to go back to something that you said a second ago about this idea between being just a DJ and an entertainer. Tell me a little bit about that.
In my opinion, a DJ, and I am jealous of these guys that can scratch and cut and do all the, tricks using the platters or the turntables, whatever they're using. A DJ in my mind is the person that plays the music, does the announcements that need to be made, and really stays behind the equipment. An entertainer engages the guests, is going to be out there and get the crowd going, do what needs to be done, whether it's emceeing, DJing, dancing. They're more of a all around. I have a guy that I call the hybrid. He does everything, and he's an entertainer. I like to think of myself as an entertainer because I'm not a DJ. I can go out there and I can mix and I can do that, but that's not where I get my phone calls from. I get my phone calls from people calling saying, hey, you were funny, or you were engaging and you kept the crowd going. As a DJ, they focus more on the music, in my opinion. And as the entertainer, I focus more on the crowd. Some people don't agree with that. I believe the DJ at a wedding does read the crowd and plays to the crowd, but they do their spin on the music. They do their remixes and their scratches, and it's all cool. But I'm not focused so much on doing all the tricks as I am on getting people out of their chairs.
So for somebody on on the front part of their journey right now, and they're thinking about, do I get into this or do I not get into this? Are you saying that in some ways, if you want to get into the wedding entertainment industry and wedding DJ, or however you would phrase it, that it's okay not to spend thousands of hours trying to learn how to scratch or trying to learn how to do that side of it? In other words, like, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe feeling discouraged that, oh, I can't scratch really well, but I want to grow in this industry and I want to do more in this industry?
The easiest thing to say is you have something so unique that nobody else in the world has it, and that's your personality. And as a DJ or an entertainer, there are three things that differentiate each of us: personality, experience, and salesmanship. The experience is great if you have the right experience. And what that is knowing what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And to equate that to the beginner, you don't need to know how to beat mix. You don't need to know how to scratch to fill up a dance floor. You might have to know how to fade at the right times and play the right song in the right order to manipulate the crowd. But you don't have to know how to scratch. Some of the most successful entertainers I know couldn't beat mix to save their life, but I guarantee you'd want them at their wedding. Concentrate on what you're really good at and work harder on what you're not so good at, so you can get them on the same level. For me, if I go through a whole event where I beat mix 10% of the time and fade 90, and the crowd is on the floor all night, it's successful. If I beat mix for 90% and fade for 10 and I don't have a full dance floor, I was just playing for me. So when you're starting out, find your niche. Are you a mixer? Are you an entertainer? Are you a personality? So that's really how I feel.
I love it. And I think about your book, The Difference Maker, which I loved reading it. I've actually gone back over it and have studied different sections several times. And what captured me about your book and really about the approach is this idea that you can go the extra mile, that you can give the wow factor, and that you don't just have to show up and say, oh, I'm just here to do one job. I'm going to press buttons on this computer, or I'm going to play music, or I'm going to make announcements, and kind of approach it from that perspective. But that you kind of have this holistic view of the entire relationship with the client and the couple, and making really the day special and really going for wow. So talk to me about wow. How did you get there, and why is that so important in today's wedding industry?
Well, one of the things I concentrate on is establishing and building a relationship with the couple. I don't want it to be a business relationship. If there's one thing I hate about the industry or what I do, is the business end of it. I'm dealing with people. So I always want to become friends with them. As a matter of fact, at my wedding, because of the relationships I made at other weddings, I think I had 5 couples at my wedding that I had the privilege of DJing at theirs. And one of the things that I do when I talk to a couple, whether it's in person or on the phone or through email, is I write notes. So if they say something that I could take advantage of, and an example would be I was doing a wedding on New Year's Eve a few years ago, and it was actually a couple. The husband was a DJ. So he knew me and he knew that my mind works a little differently than others. And we sat down and we were talking. And I just, I try not to focus so much on the wedding at that point because I want to focus on them. Topic of food came up and they said they love Buffalo Wild Wings. So I wrote a note. On the way to their wedding, I stopped at a Buffalo Wild Wings and I picked up their favorite wings and their favorite sauce and showed up at the wedding, and I gave it to the maitre d' and said, "Can you keep this on the warmer until I tell you?" And right after we did the toasts, right before the first course came out, I brought out their Buffalo Wild Wings and the Buffalo Wild Wings bag, and the bride jumped out of her chair and hugged me. And one of my favorite pictures of all time in all the years I'm doing this is that cake cutting, feeding each other, except with Buffalo Wild Wings. And all that took was asking the right questions. Because if you ask better questions, you get better answers, which lead to better results. So I always want my couples to feel like they have a friend doing their wedding who just happens to have a really cool sound system.
Wow. So what advice would you give to somebody that's maybe feeling like, I don't know if I'm ready for that, or I feel uncomfortable doing that? I mean, how did you reach that level of comfort or that willingness to kind of do something that's a little above and beyond and going that extra mile? How did you get there?
I think it just stemmed from always being a people pleaser. And I want people to be happy, no matter if it was when I was in elementary school, stopping at a nursing home and talking to the elderly and pushing them around in wheelchairs, to what I do now, where I talk to people and I go, wow, you know what? They're nice. They like this. This would be a nice little surprise or something for them to talk about. It's a matter of being confident in what you do. And I have a sign on my desk that I look at every day before I leave. It says, the only thing that beats a failure is a try. So if something happens and I can try to make somebody's day better, I do it. I don't want to do the same thing that everybody does. So if you go to a wedding and you do it in your style and your way, and I come to another wedding and I say, well, you know what? I'm going to add a little of my personality and what I learned about the bride and groom, whether it's a love story or bringing them bagels because they never had a bagel before in their life. I do it just because I think that little extra makes their day a little brighter.
What is one area that you would not skimp when it comes to being an entertainer and in this relationship with a couple for their wedding? What's an area, whether it is something in terms of the relationship itself or even equipment, what is an area that you would not skimp?
Wow. I don't skimp on equipment at all. Whether it's a microphone, speakers, if you're going to do it right. Have quality equipment. Skimping entertainment wise, it doesn't happen. I'm giving you 110% every time, whether I feel it or don't. People don't need to know what happens behind the scenes. So I can have a fight with my wife and have to leave and go to your wedding, and you will never know I had a fight with my wife. It's not your problem that I hit traffic. So I never skimp on quality. It's just a matter of they're paying for my time. They're paying for, let's say, 7 to midnight. They don't care I sat in traffic for 3 hours. They don't care I had a fight. They care that they're getting the person they hired. And you as a DJ or entertainer, you're the voice and personality of their event. So you have to maintain that at all times.
So would you I've heard you talk about this before, but could you talk to me a little bit about like when a bride or groom sends a playlist? I think some DJs can look at that and say, "Oh, well, I really know music. I really know what I'm doing. I want to insert my preferences into this day." How would you respond to a DJ that's feeling like, "Oh, I've got all this figured out. I don't need to look at the bride and groom's playlist."
First thing I would say is it's not your day. Second thing is you've never gone out with the bride and groom and their family and friends, so you don't know what gets them going. The wedding I had this past Saturday, Kielbasa by Tenacious D, not an appropriate song that I never played it before in my life. It made the bride happy. It got played. One of the things as a DJ, yes, we know a lot of music, and I'd say probably 80 to 90% of the time, we can rock any crowd just by showing up and reading the crowd properly. But again, we've never been with them. We don't know if there's that song that gets a whole family going. So as much as you don't know a thing until you see that list and you say, okay, let me look at your list and let me incorporate it and put it in the right order where I can manipulate the crowd and the dance floor. I had a family that insisted I play Hotel California. And that's one of those songs that not playing at a wedding. She said, it's a family song. I played it, packed the dance floor. I said, okay, I don't know everything.
So that's a theme that keeps coming up again, is that sometimes we as DJs, as you're figuring out the equipment and you're figuring out and you've actually had success with getting people dancing, you can kind of feel like, I really know what I'm doing. I got some, some pretty good high confidence. But on the other hand, there's this theme that you don't always know what you're doing. And sometimes you have more to learn. And any other comments on that about just that idea of really it's about humility and it's about being willing to learn even through your entire journey. You're never finished learning. Would you say anything else about that?
Well, I mentioned earlier about the right experience of knowing what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and how to do it. And to me, every wedding is unique because it's not the same crowd, it's not the same demographic, it's not the same, situation. You don't know if people woke up that morning and there was a, whatever, an argument, or people aren't speaking to each other. You have to go in there and have the ability to read the crowd, assess the situation. And I'm a football fan, so I think of things as a football player and read and react. So you have to read the situation, assess the situation, and react accordingly. So sometimes you might think, oh, this song will work now, or if I do it this mix, it'll work. Not necessarily. You have to be able to read the situation that's going on and be willing and able to be flexible and change on a dime. Because if not, if you decide I know better, you're not going to be in the industry long. If you want to do that, you be a club DJ. You get to play whatever you want, whatever format the club is. When you're a wedding DJ, you're open format. You can be playing country, hip hop, techno, punk, and oldies all in the same 4 or 5 hour span. So you have to be willing and able to understand that and knowing how to do it and when to do it.
Tell me a little bit about the homework assignment that you give to brides.
I give all my brides homework, and I give them fun homework. I don't want them to think I'm being, a mean teacher. But I always tell them the first time you do your first dance should not be at your wedding. If that song means something to you, what you should do is have a date night, crack open a bottle of wine or whatever you like, and practice your first dance. It'll give you a night just to be rekindling the reason that you're together. Two, it'll let you get a feeling for the timing of the song. You'll know if you want to dance for the entire 4.5 minutes or you want to invite your guests halfway through. Things like that make their job easy, because the worst thing that can happen is at the wedding doing their first dance and halfway through start looking around the room. because they're done. Also, I tell them that when the bride goes for her fitting for her gown, if her gown needs to be bustled, have somebody videotape it, because there is nothing worse than having me on my hands and knees under your gown trying to bustle you because nobody else knows how. So if they get the video of it, they can send it to me, they can have it on their phone. That way somebody will always have access to the way it's done. Also, if you have toasts or parent dances, you want to know where those people are seated ahead of time, so you're not walking around looking for dad and he's at the bar or in the men's room. You want to know where they're at. You also want to know if there's meaning behind the songs they're dancing to. And even going a step further and asking for the parents and the best man and maid of honor's phone numbers. You can lie and say you just want to have them, but you can contact them, find out if there's anything that you need to know. You know, if there's going to be something in the toast. The toast we did this past Saturday, the best man made a comment. Well, actually, his toast was basically the lyrics to "Never Gonna Let You Go" by Rick Astley. And, you know, my DJ knew that as soon as he was done, play the song. You know, we had that all planned out. If there's a college theme, we want to know so we can, you know, add that little extra that people are going to go, wow, that was a great idea. So little things that the bride and groom can do so they feel that you care about them enough to want their day to be perfect. And you don't have to grade their homework.
Any last words or advice that you would give to somebody that feels like, I don't know if I can do this, I'm not sure if I should be a DJ? I mean, they might be battling some self-doubt or that kind of thing, but how would you encourage somebody that actually should be DJing and that should get into the game, but they're just feeling a little down and beaten?
I think what they need to do is take a step back, look at everything from afar. Because sometimes when you're too close to a situation, you don't see the forest for the trees. So sometimes you have to take a step back and look and assess what you do and look at the thank you notes that you receive from past clients and go, wow, I really do something that I like. And I also mentioned earlier about hooking up with another DJ. So they could shadow you or they can learn from you and get a little more experience and see how things are done. And then they can take what they learned and incorporate that into their personality and how their style is. They can also join networks like the New Jersey Disc Jockey Network or ADJA or local chapters, and they'll get a good education and network with people. And networking is a very important thing in our industry.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Mike, for being on the Wedding DJ School podcast. Really appreciate your time. And encourage everybody to go check out the book. If they haven't, we'll post all the appropriate links so that you can find that. It's a great resource. Thanks again, Mike.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I want to thank you so much for being a listener of Wedding DJ School. You can find us over at weddingdjschool.com. Also, you can text Wedding DJ to 44222. We will ask for your email address, and in return, we will send you all of the podcast action guides for season 1 of Wedding DJ School. So you can do that for free just by texting Wedding DJ to 44222. Lots of actionable advice that you can put to use right away, all for free. Well, we're going to continue talking with leaders in the wedding entertainment industry. We will be back next week with a new episode.